So imagine making like a split-second medical decision, and it accidentally flatlines a patient.
Right. A total nightmare scenario.
Exactly. But then suddenly the whole room just pauses, the patient resets, and a group of doctors sits down with you to ask, well, exactly how you're feeling about what just happened.
Yeah, it's that surreal, really high stakes reality of medical simulation.
Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are unpacking the newly released 2025 Healthcare Simulation Standards of Best Practice. And we are specifically zeroing in on the vital debriefing process.
Right, because working with mannequins or actors, I mean, it is inherently artificial. The simulation itself doesn't actually teach the lesson. It is the debriefing process that acts as this ultimate bridge closing the gap between artificial practice and real-world clinical reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how that bridge gets built, we really need to separate debriefing from, something people constantly confuse it with, feedback.
Right, people mix them up all the time.
Mm.
But feedback is strictly unidirectional.
Okay, meaning one way.
Exactly. It is highly effective for correcting specific technical skills, like exactly where to place your hands during CPR.
So is feedback essentially like a GPS just barking, recalculating when you make a wrong turn? Whereas debriefing is, I don't know, pulling over and looking at the map together to figure out why you chose that route?
What's fascinating here is that captures the mechanism perfectly. True debriefing is bidirectional. It is reflective.
So it isn't just a quick correction.
No, not at all. A facilitator isn't just fixing a physical motion. They are guiding an exploration.
Yeah.
You really need that two-way conversation to develop, well, complex critical thinking and clinical judgment.
And teamwork, right.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, because it requires that level of deep reflection, this clearly isn't just a casual hallway chat. The 2025 standards outline a highly structured, evidence-based process, and it is broken into 3 phases, which are reaction, analysis, and summary.
That is right. 3 very distinct steps.
But I have to push back on that first one, actually. Healthcare is incredibly fast-paced and, well, logical. So why dedicate the entire first step to venting immediate emotions?
I know, it sounds totally counterintuitive for such a technical field. But the rationale really comes down to neurobiology.
Wait, neurobiology?
Yeah, learners physically cannot process clinical errors, or even successes for that matter, when they are just flooded with adrenaline and stress.
Oh, so they are in fight or flight mode.
Exactly.
Mm.
You have to give them a space to acknowledge those acute emotional responses first. If you don't clear their cognitive slate in that reaction phase, I mean, they literally cannot absorb the logical lessons that come next.
Wow. Okay, so you can't write on a chalkboard that's already full.
That is a great way to put it.
So once they have vented the stress and that slate is clear, we move to the analysis phase. I imagine you don't just sit down and say, you gave the wrong medication. How do you actually get to the bottom of the error?
Well, you focus on the underlying mental model. If a nurse gives the wrong med, pointing out the mistake only fixes the symptom.
Right, it doesn't solve why they did it.
Exactly. In the analysis phase, the facilitator asks what clinical signs the learner was observing that led them to that specific choice. You're trying to uncover the hidden, flawed reasoning that drove the action in the first place.
Here is where it gets really interesting. You aren't just fixing the mistake, you are like debugging the software that caused the mistake.
I love that analogy. Yes, debugging the software.
But once you have debugged that faulty mental model,
Yeah.
what do you actually do with that realization? So the learner doesn't just forget it by tomorrow's shift.
Well, that transition brings us right into the summary phase.
Step 3.
Right. The facilitator helps synthesize all that deep analysis into concrete, actionable take-home points. It ensures you leave with a memorable lesson that is designed for immediate application in a real hospital setting.
That makes perfect sense. But looking at the broader 2025 standards, I noticed this debriefing process doesn't just float in a vacuum. It mentions things like pre-briefing and facilitation.
Right, it is part of a much larger ecosystem.
Yeah, because if you don't have those pieces aligned, I assume your learning experience completely depends on whether you get a great instructor or a terrible one that day.
Yeah, the really vital thing here is how interdependent these pillars are. Pre-briefing is establishing the ground rules and expectations before anyone even touches a mannequin.
Okay.
And then facilitation is the active guidance during the scenario itself. But what really links all of this together is a steadfast commitment to psychological safety.
Meaning, if the learner doesn't feel safe, the whole bridge collapses.
Think of psychological safety like a massive safety net under a trapeze artist.
Oh, I see.
You cannot expect a learner to attempt a complex new cognitive flip or, admit to a dangerously flawed mental model if they are terrified of hitting the floor.
Right, they will just shut down.
Totally. Without that safety net established in the pre-briefing and maintained through the simulation, the debriefing will yield absolutely nothing.
So, what does this all mean? It means debriefing isn't just a mere post-game recap. It is a highly structured, evidence-based bridge that literally shapes how medical professionals save lives.
It really is the core of the learning experience.
Exactly. And it leaves you with this to mull over. If uncovering hidden mental models through a psychologically safe bidirectional debriefing is essential for saving lives in healthcare, how might applying this exact three-step process change the way we process failures and collaborate in our own daily lives and careers?